Hello, hello, good people. Here I am back in Brooklyn after nearly a month traveling. That is like the longest trip I've ever taken to London, Northern Ireland, pit stop in Dublin, and Spain. And aside from that first day in Brighton that I talked about in my last episode, and the fact that no, as my friend Jill asked me straight away, I did not get any, it was a pretty flawless trip. I wasn't especially looking forward to coming home, but it's actually been pretty good. My head and my wallet are now focused on how I'm going to make money. So, got a couple of interesting prospects that I either will or won't share with you depending on how things go, but I'm feeling pretty good. Welcome to Life Changing with Dori Fern, a podcast about the messy middle between when you hit pause and what comes next. I'm Dori Fern, a single empty nester in Brooklyn, New York, who quit a corporate job at 55 on a quest to live a more purposeful, exceptional, happier life. I'm figuring it out as I go along, but as my high school drama teacher used to say, the trip is the trip. I hope you'll join me. Today's episode is as close to service journalism as you're likely to hear on this podcast, so listen up and take notes. I'm sharing a conversation I had with Carmen Hughes, certified career coach, diversity consultant, and CEO of Edelweise Consulting. Carmen and I worked together mid-2020, and I thought it would be helpful to hear more about how we found each other and our work together. And that's because I've talked to a lot of people who like the idea of getting professional career coaching, but are either overwhelmed by how to find the right person or hesitate, understandably, to spend the money on coaches who may not, actually know what they're talking about. It has not been a direct path for me between finding a coach, and I did not go from coaching to light bulb to find, as you know, because I'm talking about it here all the time, to doing the thing after. But the process was so instructive, and I think it's really important to keep that in mind. The most valuable lessons I've learned is, number one, you got to find a coach who you like and connect with, and then show up and do the work and enjoy the surprises that come, and they will, and keep moving forward. You do that, and I do think, at least in my experience, that the pieces will come together over time. And I have to say, it tickles me that even though I'm still in, exploration mode professionally, and personally too, that the very same things I cared about doing in early 2020 when I first met Carmen, the things that I identified as important to me, are really much the same now. I'm just trying to figure out what shape they're to take. The cooking and the creative stuff, as you know, but also I want to help change lives that are not my own, especially when it comes to race. So more on that in future episodes. For now, please enjoy my conversation with the very delightful Carmen Hughes. Hi, Carmen Hughes.
Hi, Dori. How are you?
I'm good. It's so nice to see you.
Likewise.
So thank you for joining me today. I'm really excited to talk to you. I just wanted to start by telling people listening how we met each other, because in some ways, it's relevant to why I actually wanted to talk to you today. So it was January of 2020, and you were on a panel for diversity and inclusion, and you're talking about a coaching program that you had done. Well, the Cornell program is a DEI-focused coaching program, correct? Is that right?
Cornell program is strictly on diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right.
And it's for diversity professionals who want to get certified in the profession.
Got it. And then you had also done a program called iCoach.
Yes. So it was actually IPEC. So it was the coaching program that I went through IPEC. Yes.
And what is IPEC?
IPEC is the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, and it's part of the International Coaching Federation.
Great. So anyway, we met in that panel, and I reached out to you afterwards. So we talked, and then, of course, COVID happened. And it was my birthday was actually the day after my birthday. I get a LinkedIn happy birthday wish from you saying, "Did you do anything? Did you ever follow up on the program?" And of course, June 5th was the week after George Floyd was killed. And I had just spent the day before at a protest and thinking about, even for coaching, this racial equity. It was something I was interested in at the time before all this happened. And of course, that sparked new interest in me to continue. And also, you had just reached out right after my birthday, and it just felt like good timing. So on that same day, we got on another call, and somehow the end of the conversation was, "Okay, I'm going to hire you to be my coach." Like, that was not how I thought the conversation was going to go, but that's how it went. And we worked together for 3 months. And I didn't decide to leave my job for about 6 months after that. Talk about your approach, because it was really helpful to me at that time. And I just couldn't have even anticipated how helpful it would be.
I remember the time as well. And us having that discussion on my approach to coaching. And if I remember from our coaching, you've been very involved from a racial equity, diversity perspective, I think, for most of your life. So this is not something that was just new to you. You were, if I remember, very involved for a while.
Well, thinking about it and it being part of my day-to-day consideration set, I'm not a formal, I haven't, and that was part of it. If I want to formalize this, what would that look like?
Right. Absolutely. But when I think about my coaching practice and when I think about my approach with people, it really is about getting people connected to their dreams, to just start thinking about what they really want and being able to articulate that in a positive and forward-looking lens with commitment and accountability. And so we said, well, I kind of want to do this, but, and all the buts are why we're never really actually fulfilling our dream. So I'm really deep into state exactly what you want, and then let's figure out how we can make it happen and why it's important to you.
I think for me, a lot of it was working on my creative life and how to bring that more to the fore. One of the biggest benefits for me in working with you, however, is the way we look at how I showed up at work. So there are a lot of articles that have happened since the Great Resignation, such as it is, about how you have to be careful about how you leave your job because you don't want to just run away from something. And so much of our work together was getting me to look at how I was showing up for, in working with other people. And it was so invaluable to me to learn that. I mean, there are texts I have where you're like, yeah, this person who you work with, who will remain nameless here, is, sure, they're a jerk, but so what? Like, how are you going to navigate this situation so that it doesn't create stress? And so long of my life, it was about running away from the thing I was doing to something new without really exploring and examining what was it that was so aggravating to me? Why was I internalizing so much of this? And I've written about this since I left my job about your Q-tip thing. Do you want to, it's still, wait, oh my God, where is it? I think it's moved, but I've had a Q-tip right by my laptop telling me, quit taking it personal. And yes. How did that even become a thing for you?
Someone had shared it with me, and it stuck because that is something that I do. I take things personal. It was one of my IPEC coaches. And so he was like, Carmen, quit taking it personal. And I said, that is right on point, because we can't change other people, but we can change ourselves. And I think that's what I was trying to show you. And you weren't ready to leave at that point in time. You were frustrated with, some of the things that were happening within the organization. And it was like, okay, what is in your control? What is in your control is how you respond and react to what's going on with this person. And a lot of times when people don't like their manager or don't like their colleague or don't like someone who's in their environment, then they start being passive aggressive and they start doing other things and they start stressing themselves out. And it doesn't change the situation, it just amplifies it.
Yeah, and exactly. And it's just reminding you of the humanity in every situation. And also that when you work with people, especially people who are in charge of people or operations, it's how can you help them? I have a mentee and we talk a lot about, how she can help. That's sort of the best. Nobody tells you that when you go to jobs, that your job really is to help your boss be successful. In large measure, that is a really big part of most people's jobs. And
how do you make your boss's job easier?
How do you make your boss's job easier? And so figuring that out, even when you don't especially like the person that you're working for, it's challenging. But it was so instructive for me. And if I am at an institution, if I am going back to full time, it's helped me so much to think about that and to remember that, there's so much more in your power to make better day to day than we are ever really thinking about. So thank you for that. And the reason I wanted to tell that story of how we met is because of the serendipity of it. What's your advice for people who are thinking about getting a coach and how to find one?
Yeah, well, a couple things come to mind. First, coaching is like dating. It's a relationship, right? It's not going to be this magic hour. Coach is going to be able to tell you what you need and it's over, which is why coaches sell their services in packages. And as we begin to know one another and we help you kind of get to know yourself too, that's where the magic starts happening. That's where the evolution can happen. And that can take time. Most coaches will offer at least a half an hour free consultation. So that will be at least a test for you to ask those questions to say, this is what I'm working on. How will you get me there? What will your process be like? What can I expect when I work with you? And I also think it's important for you to be honest with yourself in terms of how do you best receive feedback and how do you want to look deeper in yourself? You were so great to work with because you allowed me, you gave me the permission to say, can I call you on your stuff? Can I say, this is what I see when you do certain things? And you said yes. And other people, they're not comfortable. So it takes longer to do that. But it's not the job of the coach, to tell you what you want. I believe you know exactly what you want. The job and the role of the coach is to ask you empowering questions to get you to look at yourself and then answer and navigate what's best for you.
Right. In terms of actually finding people, though, like I found you because, like I said, I saw you on a panel and I didn't even know until, we talked about what you did. I heard the words, but I wasn't expecting what I got out of it. So, well, that's part of it. And I guess that is just part of the journey and the openness part. If somebody is looking for a coach but doesn't know where to go, what would you say to them?
Well, I think one place that you can go is the International Coaching Federation. They have a directory of all of their coaches, and every state has a chapter. And you can easily go onto the website for the chapter for whatever state you live in and look for coaches, and there'll be all types of coaches: career coach, resume coach, transition coach, stress and anxiety coach, So whatever you're dealing with, they have it in different buckets, and you can read people's bios and find a coach that way. And what's great with the internet, you don't need to use a coach in your state. Coach people all around the world, Hong Kong, Switzerland. So that does give you some flexibility, but I would go to the International Coaching Federation because then at least you're getting someone who's certified and trained. Since I live in Connecticut, my home chapter is www.icf-ct.org.
That's really great advice. Thank you. In terms of the cost, that's another thing. And I kind of think it's the same for therapy too. People talk themselves out of, some people don't have the funds to do something like that. Well, let's start there.
Easy tricks for yourself and some tools for yourself. Really just write down exactly what you want. What are you looking for? And if you don't know, then write a list of all the things you don't want. So at least you can start crossing those off the list. I think as we're trying to work with someone who's looking for a transition, it's what do I really want? What makes me happy? And if I think about my transition of how I got into coaching, I spent 20 years on Wall Street. I was on the trading floor. So you can imagine being a woman of color on the trading floor. There weren't a lot of us. So I was constantly being tapped to mentor. And I use mentor specifically because I didn't know how to be a coach and I wasn't coaching then. I was purely just mentoring people off of my pure own experience, how they can navigate the worlds of the investment bank and the sales and trading. And then I got involved in a number of diversity initiatives. So that's kind of how I got my introduction to, I actually enjoy mentoring people. Maybe I should actually learn how to do this for real. And that's when I went to IPAC to get trained on how to be a coach. And then I started doing diversity consulting and training. And that's what led me to Cornell University to fully get trained so I can truly understand exactly how do I put a strategy in place and what does it mean to put a strategy in place and how do I make sure it's successful and be inclusive. So, but it did start with what makes me happy. So I left Wall Street after 20 years because I was able to retire. And it was my husband who said, you come home happiest when you're, mentoring somebody or when you're doing something for diversity. So listening to people around you who listen to you talk all the time will also help. And one of the things, I don't know if you remember that we did the energy leadership assessment when you first started.
Yes, please talk about that. Yes.
Oh, yeah. So, we show up when someone is really happy, like their whole body shifts, the energy comes up, and then you can really start seeing like, okay, I saw, and your energy level change. Like, tell me something that's going on for that. And people who are close to you will be able to tell. They may not have the professional language behind it, but they can tell when you're happy or when you're sad or when you're upset. And so for me, that was my husband. But I use it professionally in terms of looking at people's energy when I'm talking to them to say, okay, I know you said the words you said did not match the energy that just came off. So let's go and let's talk more about that. And so by doing the ELI, which is the Energy Leadership Index, I'm able to see, are you someone who usually comes from a place of feeling like they're the victim, or are you very angry? Those are levels 1 and 2 in the index, and that's filled with a lot of stress and a lot of cortisol. It creates all that adrenaline, which can be used for good and bad. So there's positives and negatives with both. I don't want to say one is negative, but if someone's coming from that place, and that going into coaching with them, versus if someone the pleaser, or someone all about, looking at the opportunities that exist. They're constantly looking at the opportunities, or you people who are just like, what? There's no win or lose. We all win-win. So I'm able to kind of take you through the index and kind of see what is your flavor, what brings you happiness, how do you kind of embrace it through an energy lens.
Right. And so going back to the question about folks who maybe are not ready to commit or don't have the funds to do it, I think that's great advice to write those things down. And then just as a follow-up to that, if you were to look at that list and do something on your own with it, what does that look like? Obviously, it's going to depend on what's on the list, but in broad strokes.
In broad strokes. So if you want to do something, then get in action, right? And so I'm glad you brought us back to it. Let me give you one piece of it. Write it down. And then if that's what you want to do, then if you're really good at holding yourself accountable, then start writing down what are the goals and what are the steps you're actually going to take to move towards that goal. And if you're not good, if you're one that keeps starting over, then who do you trust that's in your circle who you won't get mad at when they hold you accountable for actually doing what you said you wanted to do? So I'm working with a client who says she wants to leave her job. So I said, listen, I'm suggesting you don't leave yet because you don't have a plan. So let's develop your plan. And I said, and let's make sure that you're ready and prepared, because now that you put it out there, you're leaving your job, right? Within 6 months of us working together, they dismantled her group. So she did lose her job. And that's actually the way she wanted to lose her job, was to get the severance package,
Right.
And we decided that she wanted to go to school. So we already had her in her GMAT classes, taking her GMAT. So she was prepared when all that was happening. So once you put it out there, the ball is going to get in motion to what you just said you wanted. So there's your accountability for why you want to start preparing yourself, because you just committed to it.
Yeah. What I love about your advice is even if you didn't have someone guiding you professionally, that whether it's yourself writing an accountability list is just to remember, or a friend who is your accountability person, that you are chipping away at the things that you want to do and not just quitting. And also that there are many different ways to get to that end goal, whether it's if you're not ready to take the new job or even go to school or whatever. I love that you're suggesting, well, maybe write a blog or do a podcast or do something that is in your control to do that maybe you have no idea. I have no idea why people are like, why are you doing this podcast? I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm in the middle of this thing and I like talking to people and it's creative and it's my story. And I didn't really want to be, this is not about me as expert. So I just said, I'm just going to do it. And it's so that is not something that pre-life-changing Dori would have done because I would have talked myself out of it. And I do think manifestation, such as it is really about putting one foot in front of the other and both identifying things that mean something to you. You talked about what do you love? What do you not love? Like all those things. But then it's, how do you take the steps? It's not magical realism. Like, how do you take the steps to make them come to life? And all those steps don't have to be get the job, go to school. It's a long road. Life, it is.
It is a long road. And first of all, I don't know why you're doing this podcast, but I think it's so perfect because you have the most perfect voice for it. And I mean, if you ever wanted to get on camera, you have the perfect look for it as well. Like, I just love talking to you. You're so captivating. You have like such an award-winning personality. Oh
my goodness. Thank you.
And you don't know where this is going to lead you to. Why the universe leads you to this podcast, you don't know yet. But you're going to have a profound impact on many people's lives, I'm sure. Or someone's going to hear your podcast and say, I need her to do this work for me, and it's going to be your dream job that you always wanted. Or this will turn into something phenomenal, right? But it's putting you in motion to what you want to do because you are such a creative genius. And that is really like, that's where your happiness, that's where your energy flows is when you're creating. So this made perfect sense to me when you said you're doing a podcast. And I said, oh, I was so happy because this is like the right place for you. And I also say that I love the way you put it. It's about staying in action. It's about putting one foot in front of the other. And what I would say is that if you can't afford a coach, I want you to write down at least exactly what you want and then share it with somebody and say, okay, make sure it's smart, like your goals. Okay, was I clear enough?
Right. What are the metrics?
What are the metrics? Exactly. So that way, you don't need a roadmap, but just like when you get into the car, you have to know where you're going or you're just going to drive, And if you don't know where you're going, then you may miss it. So that's why it is so important to be as clear as possible and writing it down.
The one last thing I wanted to ask you, Carmen, is what should someone like me who doesn't have a single passion or nascent unfulfilled dream think about moving forward with a successful change mindset, with focus and discipline and without getting overwhelmed?
Things, everything we just said, one step at a time, one piece at a time. We can't boil the ocean. So start testing it out. When I left my job, I was in my early 40s and I said to my husband, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just left my job and I don't know what I want to do next. I thought I wanted to do marketing first before I really kind of narrowed in on the coaching and diversity. But I was stressing and he gave me the best advice. He said, just stop and play some golf with me. But at the end of the day, really what it's about was just relax your brain and stop thinking about it and just open your heart to what you're feeling. And so whether it's taking walks, whether it's just reading books, doing something other than like listening to your thoughts, because I tell you, 60% of what we tell ourselves is negative. As high as 80%. And if we can just start saying, okay, quiet the brain, and do something that's going to force you to focus on something other than that, it allows some new thoughts to come in there. And so often what we do is to just repeat the same thought over and over and over again. And that's where the overwhelm comes in.
Well, it has made me very happy to talk to you, Carmen Hughes, and I thank you so much for joining my podcast and talking with your great wisdom. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I truly enjoyed this time that we spent together. I'm so happy to see that you're following your heart.
Thank you. Now, can you please tell everyone how they can find you if they are looking for your coaching services?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So you can find me. My website is Edelweise. It's like the German winter flower, but it's spelled slightly different. So I'll spell it slowly for you now. It's www.edelweise consulting.com. So that's edelweiseconsulting.com. Think of the sound of music.
And I will put that in the show notes for everyone. So thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This was awesome. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Did you enjoy that conversation with the lovely Carmen Hughes as much as I did? I hope so. If you did, it is very, very helpful. If you would rate and review the podcast, maybe you prefer more of the storytelling thing, whatever it is, it's helpful to get those ratings and reviews. Anybody listening to this wants to talk to me more about coaching and what that was like, reach out to me on the socials. Find me on LinkedIn and message me, or I'm on Instagram. Well, I'm at Dori Fern. The podcast is Life Changing with Dori Fern. Follow me, DM me, let me know what you think. I would love to hear from you. And have a great week, and I will be talking to you next week. Bye.